back, Julie. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Amazing. I'm doing good as well. This is the first time I guess you're seeing me on camera now.
Yes, yes.
So Julie would be speaking to us on selling on camera. She is the founder and sales presentation expert at Performance Sales and Training, author of 2 sales books, including Sales Presentation for Dummies, and also an actor. So over to you, Casey.
Well, thank you for joining me today. I'm going to talk about selling on camera. And as Deborah already said, I'm also an actor. And one of the things that we learn as actors is how to act on camera. So I acted on stage for many years, and it's very different than acting in front of film. And so my first audition, I went to for film. I got into the room and I felt pretty confident because I knew my lines. I thought I was right for the role. And I got in front of the camera and I just froze. I couldn't remember a line. I didn't know where to look. It was just awful. Obviously, I did not get the part, but I did take some on-camera acting classes and learn that you really have to adjust your style to fit that medium. And that's really the challenge that we're facing today. So, there we go, that's better. So I developed some techniques because, speaking on camera is a very unnatural act. And there's no reason that you should be good at it. And it's really a challenge that we're all facing today in sales as we navigate through this virtual world. And especially, customers are being bombarded with video call after video call, and they're experiencing something that's being called Zoom gloom, which is just the exhaustion as our brain tries to process, reading people through video constantly. It's just such a heavy task on our brains. And there's just an utter sameness to the quality of all these calls. So the question becomes, how are you going to stand out in this virtual world and really connect with customers via the camera? Because that's a real issue when everybody is on camera. So what I'm going to share with you is a couple of techniques that I learned, because it is a technique, and it's a technique that you need to learn and practice until it becomes second nature. You don't want people to see your technique, right? And right now, a lot of people out there are just practicing on customers, and that's a very dangerous place to be. So 2 techniques I want to share with you, which I think are very foundational to being good and connecting with people via the camera on these video calls. And the first one is this idea of being natural on camera, right? I hear a lot of people say, well, I just want to be natural or act natural. Like it's the easiest thing in the world, right? And what happens when the camera goes on is 2 things typically. Some people get very stiff and it feels very artificial. And some people take that natural idea to the extreme. And what happens is we have to be careful, because our conception of what natural is often means to us being comfortable and being relaxed and being super chill, right? Maybe not as chill as this guy, but certainly relaxed. And that just doesn't read well on camera. So let me give you an example. And I'm gonna pause my share here so you can see this better. Okay, so let's say I'm talking to Guru, and I'm gonna get comfortable, right? I wanna be natural, I'm gonna get comfortable. Hi Guru, how you doing? So I thought today we'd talk about how I can help your sales team stand out on camera. We've got some great techniques that work really well, and once they learn them, they'll be much more effective, and you should get more closed deals. How was that? I was comfortable. I don't know if you were terribly engaged. So you may have noticed I got comfortable in my comfy chair, and for most of us it means kind of sinking into our chair, leaning back, And maybe you noticed my energy was very low, which also coincides with that body language. You probably saw that low energy in my face. You probably heard it in my voice. So again, it doesn't look like I'm really that into this conversation, right? And I may very well be, I'm just relaxed. So I don't mean that you don't want to be relaxed, but the ideal natural state on camera that reads well is to be your most engaged and present self. And that takes some work, that takes some practice. So you want to look like you are, you are there for this person. And so the ideal position is to sit up straight and even to lean forward about 10 or 15%, because that looks like you're on the edge of your seat waiting to talk to this person or waiting to hear what they have to say. So that's the type of energy that you want to bring to these calls, because what happens is the energy gets a little diluted anyway as you go through layers of technology. So you have to bring a high level of energy, and then you have to know how to use it within the confines of this stage. So that's a very important thing. The other thing I want to talk about is this idea of eye contact. I get a lot of questions about that. Understandably, it can be very awkward. And eye contact is so important because that's really how we build relationships. And what happens is, when we're looking down here, it probably feels like I'm not that attentive. Yes. So I can be very much focused on you, I think I'm focused on you, but to you, it reads like I'm not paying attention because I am looking at your picture where your video would be on my screen. And very rarely does that line up with our sight line, our eyes. You can adjust your camera, your computer. I have mine up on a couple of books, and you can move the other person's picture around, but likely it's not going to be a perfect fit. So you have to get used to talking to that camera. And again, it's very awkward. So to do that, you have to think of your camera as a friend, right? You have to make friends with it, because if you think of your camera as the enemy, as an obstacle, as something it feels very awkward, that's going to come across to your customer, and they're going to just feel like something's off, and they're not going to know why. And this is a time where we really need to build credibility and confidence in our customers, and they need to be confident in you. So make friends with your camera, and to do that, give it a name. Give it a name. Talk to it a couple minutes every day, but you need to work past that barrier, because you got to have a relationship with this camera. You probably heard the saying, the camera loves that person, the camera loves that particular actor. And the truth is, the camera's indifferent. It's going to pick up whatever it sees, and it's also going to pick up what it feels. So those are my two top tips. We're going to take some questions now, but if you don't have a technique, you're basically practicing on your customers. So a couple things you can do is, if you're interested in more training around this, I'm doing an on-camera master class, and you can send me an email at Julie@actingforsales. And I'll also have this cheat sheet you can download with these tips and then some others. So quick tips on how to present yourself at your very best on camera. So Guru and Deborah, I know we have some questions. Do you want to let me know what those are?
Sure. Yes. First of all, thank you so much. It was a great presentation. So we'll take up the questions. I think the first question that we have, what is the camera etiquette for online sessions? Could you?
I'm sorry, what is the camera
camera etiquette for online sessions?
What is it? Educate?
Etiquette. Mannerism, or how exactly should you behave?
Oh, how should you behave?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so that's the trick. The trick is to behave as I said, as engaged and present as you can be, which is, you want to be yourself. It's about being authentic, but it's being authentic in the framework of this stage that you're operating in under these artificial circumstances where the person isn't there and the camera isn't there. So you have to practice what reads well on the camera and then get comfortable with that until it becomes natural. So you want to have your movements within the camera frame. You want to make good eye contact with the camera. And it doesn't mean you can't look away, because oftentimes, think about how you look at people in real life. Sometimes we look away when we're gathering our thoughts. You also want to glance down occasionally to check body language to see, what your customer is doing. Although our periphery vision is pretty good if we give it a chance.
Amazing. So next question is how to be on camera for an introvert person.
For an introverted person, yes. I totally get that, because most people don't like being on camera anyway. And if you're introverted, it feels very much like too much. One thing you want to do is, and I suggest this whether you're introverted or not, is turn off your camera view so you don't see yourself when you're on a call. What you want to do, first of all, you don't want to focus on yourself. You want to practice these techniques off camera so you can be fully present and engaged on your customer. That's the idea. You don't need to be checking your picture. And that's what happens is we check and we see, oh my God, I'm doing something weird, or oh, look at my hair. It's this constant self-assessment that will really take you out of the moment and make you even more anxious. So you can hide your view on Zoom. You just click on the top 3 dots and there's an option to hide your view. And just if you focus 100% on your customer and you have practiced a technique, you shouldn't be as anxious. And you can also do some warm-ups ahead of time, just, because that affects your nervous system. So I always recommend doing a physical and vocal warm-up, loosening up, so you can show up at your best.
Okay. So we have another question from Divya. She asks how to avoid repetitions in speech, such as, like, etc.
Okay. Yes, those are the things we start to notice when we record ourselves and play back a conversation. Those filler words are often because we're not ending our sentences. They're crutch words. And the first thing is great. You recognize them. That's fantastic. Now you have to work on every time you notice them, stop, re-say the sentence without that word. You need to practice these things, not just on video calls, not just in business. You need to practice it when you're talking to your friends or your spouse. So recognize them, stop using them, and also think about speaking in complete sentences, because oftentimes they're a filler word in between thoughts. So just end your sentence with a period instead of and, leading right into the next sentence.
Okay, so we have another question. Do you ever turn to video recording versus real time? Like, which one would you prefer?
I guess it depends on the purpose. So video recording is great for especially content that you're repeating many times. Perhaps, if it's a demo that you're going to present to multiple people and you want to get it out en masse. But live is always best for a customer call, right? Because that's your opportunity to connect, and they can't connect with you in a pre-recorded video.
Okay. So another question that we have is, does documenting one's own life makes it more comfortable rather than testing on clients?
Does documenting your own life?
Yeah.
Well, again, it's when you're documenting your life, you're not thinking necessarily about how you appear to the audience. So we're not as aware, we're being that very natural state, again, that doesn't necessarily read as engaged and present. It's just who we are, you know, hanging around the house. And that's not the person I want to show up as in a sales conversation. It's not the me sitting back, you know, channel clicking, right? Channel surfing. So yes, it helps you be more comfortable in front of the camera, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's what's going to read well as engaged and connecting on camera.
Okay. So we have, we'll take up just one last question. Does voice modulation help, or how important is it when you're speaking on camera?
That's a great question. And when you think about it, you know, your tools that you have are your voice and your facial expressions, your body language. You have your presence of your face, but it's much more limited than live. So voice is very important. And that's something, you know, that's an additional thing, you know, you work on camera is my voice expressing how I feel about things? Because a lot of people get into business mode where it's very flat and it's very, very much the same and blah, 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 you know. I want to hear, first of all, I want to see expression in your face on camera, and I want to hear it in your voice. A lot of times, if you play back you speaking about something, and if you can't tell from your words whether it's good or bad, there's something wrong, right? You should be able to tell that from your tone and your inflections. So definitely a good thing to work on to improve your video calls.
Amazing, Julie. That was a great presentation, and thanks for answering all the questions. Again, if you have other questions that we haven't answered, do pass them on to me. I'll pass them on to Julie. Probably when she has time, she can answer all those questions, and we'll get back to you with all the answers. Thank you, Julie. Thanks for the great session.
Thank you.
Thank you. And also, if you have any other guides, checklists, etc., that you want to share, I think you have already done it. So share that with me. I'll share it with our community so that they get everything, all the resources that you want to share with them.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. I look forward to the next session.
Thank you.
Hey, hope you like the recording. Do check us out at Ampliz B2B Binge for 11 more killer content. Also try out Ampliz Sales Buddy if you want to ring that next customer who is waiting for it.